This is 1 in 36, a presentation of the Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 36 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And with me today is Tim Gifford, who is the president of a company called Movia. And Tim, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you on.
Hi, glad to be here.
So as I usually do, I'd love to start with just asking you to give us and our listeners some background on yourself, who you are, and then we can get into Movia and your team and your work in that domain.
Sure. So I've been working in different areas of technology and psychology for many years, and using different techniques to try to make technology more accessible, or to be able to use new tech in a way that can help us to do new things. And while doing this work, I did a lot of research into how humans interact with the world, and then started applying that to robots to help them interact. And then also, I looked at how we interact with each other and to try to help the robots to interact with us in a way that's more comfortable for us and more successful. But while doing this, I discovered that there's been a lot of successful research around working with kids with autism with robots. Mm-hmm. And that there's a unique opportunity there, because the robots are seen as social entities for these kiddos, but they're simpler than people. So, as you may know, folks with autism often have trouble with being oversensitive to certain emotional cues and other types of nonverbal cues, and then not be aware of other social cues. Mm-hmm. So this can cause a lot of uneasiness and discomfort, and that could be a barrier for them to get access to certain programs, educational programs and so forth. And so what we found is that we can have the robots lead the kiddos through different activities, do it in a social way with speech and gestures and emotional expressions and so forth. And then the students can learn new skills, have an opportunity to practice those skills in a very controlled environment. And then they get some confidence. And what we've seen is that they then use these skills when they're back with their friends and family and in their classes. And it's working pretty well.
Thank you for the overview. Absolutely. I've at Anderson, we get a lot of information specific to the autistic population, and robotics has been something that's been growing in the field, like you said. And you mentioned a couple of sort of key words in my brain, accessibility being one. Also, I loved how you said the robots are seen as social entities, but they're simpler than people. And I think that just resonated with me, because I guess the thought that came through my head is that we as humans often, I think that's a unique way to look at human behavior. And I was a psych major way back when in college, and I've always loved looking at the way people interact with other people. But to consider the difference between a social entity, that's simpler than a person. I've also, you have the tech background. I really don't. So I've always looked at tech is way harder, more complicated, more challenging for me to understand. But in this scenario, I guess what I'm getting at is it really makes sense to me. The idea that the best of the best of the best human instructors in a classroom, educators, board certified behavior analysts, whatever type of instructor you have, are still at the beginning of the day and the end of the day a person. who's susceptible to being tired or being maybe distracted, or not always having the exact same tone of voice or the same emphasis in the sentence that you're trying to explain. And yet that's what people who are entering that field are sort of trained to do, to be as effective as possible. So here's a great solution. A robot that's friendly and has a face and has features and tone, but also can program to have an incredible consistency. I think it's brilliant. So I think the idea of bringing robotics into this field is really tremendous. So
I'll just,
go ahead.
if I may, just one quick interjection there.
Yep.
It's really a tool to be used with the specialist. So it's not like we're saying, you can have a robot instead of a specialist. But rather, this is really a tool for the specialist to be able to use to help engage the child, and then also to provide that a consistent, objective response, and still have it be dynamic and so forth. So,
thank you for clarifying that. I think that helps dispel a misnomer or a myth that people working in the tech accessibility and tech instructional world are trying to have people just interact with robots or with games on a screen, and are saying, this is instead of that personal interaction. But if you go to your website, and it's Movia, Movia, you can see videos, testimonials where clearly there's either a teacher or a therapist or a parent or a caregiver working with the child. And it's a nice range of ages that I saw in those testimonials as well. Really young kids, look to me maybe preschool or even younger, siblings working together, and then all the way up. I think the oldest person I saw was a 15-year-old high school student. So thank you for clarifying that. I think that's important for families to hear. Can you, since I just touched on it, can you give a quick overview of, I think it's 3 types, but maybe there's more overall of the types of robots you're creating that go along with different scenarios, whether home, school, or in a therapeutic situation?
Sure. So, yes, we have 3 different products that we've targeted to different situations. And then we have multiple robots that can be used. So you can mix and match. And we don't actually make the robots. We sort of find the best in class that are available. We buy commercial off-the-shelf robots, which is fun to say every time I say it.
That was not a thing all that long ago.
And then what we do is we then put our software on it and integrate it into our system, and then it becomes a viable tool to interact with the kiddos. So we have the Home Pal, which is designed for families, and it's very simple to use, and it's very nice. It provides many different kinds of interactions in a very principled way. So all of our techniques are evidence-based, and it's very nice. The other nice thing about it is that as it's going through the different types of interactions, many of them are based off of standard ABA types of interactions. It's really helpful for the parents who are, of course, very committed and their hearts are in the right place, but they may or may not have training in working with children with intellectual and developmental delays. And sometimes the correct response can be counterintuitive, like waiting to help or waiting to prompt or when to, add more and so forth. And so it's really helpful to watch how the robot is going through it. And that's actually we found to be a benefit as well, so that it becomes a sort of a family training tool, as well as a tool for the child to be getting access to the different types of lessons and activities. Mm-hmm. Then we have the Teacher's Aid, which is for the school, and it's a similar product, but it has a lot of tools for working with a large number of kids. You can put in data about each child and track them nicely. And then we have the TheraPal, which is based off of the same core engine, but it's designed more for clinical applications, therapeutic type of interventions.
So I like that you covered those three main areas, and I really appreciate what you're saying about the tool for the whole family. I hear frequently, because I interact with a lot of families from Anderson and families raising children with autism all over through this podcast and other interactions that I have. And one of the things that is very consistently said to me is, more tools, more resources, just sort of more help. I want to be as effective a parent as I can be. And like you said, some of the times, especially with an ABA-based program, the right next step can feel counterintuitive, really, from a parental standpoint, especially a parent who's been raising that child since birth, who is sort of one of the things that they also often say to me is that, I've been helping my child and doing things for them to make their life easier since they were, tiny babies. And now all of a sudden I'm supposed to sort of hold off and wait for them to get there. And it's unusual, unless you're a homeschool parent, I guess, or something similar, to be in a position where you're parent / instructor sort of all the time. And again, there's a video, which I won't get into the details on, but there was one on your website that really kind of demonstrated that, I think, from a parent's point of view, with her 15-year-old son, who was working with him and watching him work with the robot around communication, but also at the same time, I think, was realizing things about her son that she had never known before, which had to have been an incredible series of moments for her. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, Tim, I'm hoping to talk about some of your success stories and some of the future of where this technology might go, what people can look forward to, and how they can get their hands on your software and these robots. So this is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and we'll be right back.
There are a ton of social networking websites, but one stands apart for a very special reason. This one saves lives. It's MatchingDonors.com. MatchingDonors.com links organ donors with people in need of kidney and other transplants. In the U.S., 22 people die each day waiting for an organ transplant, most of them for kidneys. If you've ever considered becoming a living organ donor, or if you're someone in need of an organ transplant, visit MatchingDonors.com, home of the greatest gift of all, the gift of life. MatchingDonors.com.
Somewhere there's a river rushing through the woods while someone rushes through their day. There's a mountain looking up at the sky while someone looks down at their phone. A trail waiting to be walked while someone waits for a latte. This world is full of somewheres waiting for someone just like you. So go see yours at 154 national forests and 20 grasslands. And to learn more, visit nationalforest.org. The National Forest Foundation. See your somewhere.
You saved my life. You held my hand when I was scared. You helped me say goodbye to my dad. You were an example for me. You gave me strength when I thought I had none left. I couldn't tell you then, but I want to say thank you, all of you, for everything. Thank you to the physicians, nurses, and others working in America's hospitals and health systems. A message from the American Hospital Association, American Medical Association, and American Nurses Association.
And now, 1 in 36 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs program presented by the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and today I'm talking with Tim Gifford, who's the president of a company called Movia, Movia. Tim, before we jump back into our interview, do you want to share the website and any other information about where people can go to get more insight into what you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. It's Movia, as you say, and then robotics. So just go to moviarobotics.com, and there's lots of info and video and so forth at that website. You can also go on our Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn.
You're on all the social media platforms.
I don't know that we're on all of them, but we're on a bunch of them. And,
So I wanted to start. Thank you for that, and I do encourage people to go. It's a great website. I found it really easy to navigate and had a lot of information, including those videos that I keep referencing. Before we get into more of the sort of details of the robots themselves, and I'd love to hear about some success stories, I was also struck by your core team, and I assume you have more employees than the three that I saw, yourself included, but you have I think she's a marriage and family psychotherapist who's very involved. And then you also have a former special education teacher, administrator, somebody who's been in the classroom, runs a school. And then there's you with, a lot of the tech and psychology background yourself, as you said before. So I'm curious, how did you all connect? And give us a little glimpse into how you all work together to make this happen.
Well, we've actually been at this for many years. We started out in research and then grew it from there. So several of the folks have come to the team, as we've done different piloting and so forth. And then we've also had people that we brought in around specific types of interventions. So like Lisa, she does a lot of family work and outreach and supporting schools as well. And then another of our team has a lot of experience working within the system, within public schools. And so each of these folks brings their particular insights. And one of the things that's really important for us is the multi-aspect of our approach. And so what I mean is that the most important thing is, of course, the interaction with the children. And we even reach adults with autism with some of our systems.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about that. That's cool.
Yeah. And so, we do a lot of work around looking at how autism therapy is done, and then what are some unique opportunities with an interactive assistive technology device like the robot. And then, so that's one piece of it. But then the other piece is in the robustness and ease of use of the system. So this is a system that's designed to survive in the classroom, in the home, and these are not easy environments.
Right.
So we work very hard to make sure that the system is really easy to use, because we don't want to ask a teacher to manage another thing, but rather here's a tool to make it easier for you. And
right.
the same thing in the home. And so that's really important. But we also don't want to lose any of the sophistication of the system. And so we have a very carefully designed interface. Our system is semi-autonomous, meaning it does a lot of the work on its own, but the therapist or the facilitator, as we say, is also controlling. So it's a team approach really between the robot and the caregiver. And that's really made it very powerful. There are some completely automatic systems or autonomous using AI and other things that are out there. And they can be pretty good within a specific situation. But particularly with the children with different sorts of speech deficits or things like that, it becomes very difficult for the system to really tell what's going on or where that child is.
Mm-hmm.
The parent or the teacher in the loop, where you can get very good results because it's always has that level of interpretation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as we were saying before, it also is an opportunity because you can actually speak through the robot. So you can have a conversation with the child where you're typing in different things and the robot says what you're typing in.
That's so interesting.
So we found situations where a child may come in from recess and clearly is upset about something, and we just have the robot says, "Oh, what's wrong? What's going on?" And the child, who is already used to talking with the robot, will sometimes open up to the robot in a way that they won't to an adult. And so this is an opportunity. Even if the adult is in the room, still the child is having the interaction with the.
I love that. I think that's a brilliant thing to add. Because again, it's really helpful to have you sort of talk through all the different ways that you look at this and the different things that you've added to the software and the programming that make it so it can be used in a multitude of ways. I really like that. I think that there is certainly a time And to me, I guess to backtrack, that to me is what makes it a true tool as opposed to a replacement of something else or a human interaction. When I was in college and I was studying psychology, and then I went on to study social work in graduate school, one of the things that my professors always talked about was meeting your clients where they're at. And I think that's a phrase that most of us who've got any background in psychology or social work or anything similar have heard that before in our training. And to me, that's exactly what you're doing. It's sort of taking away the stigma that, if you're interacting with a robot, it's because you can't interact with a human, or you're interacting with, you have to always be interacting with humans. And if you interact with a robot, it's going to somehow diminish your ability to eventually gain skill in interacting with your peers or with your family members or with your teachers. By way of finding all these different sort of interactive ways to connect both, you're building steps towards something. So I also have a background. I was a teacher for a few years way back when, and the idea of being able to just experiment with, hey, I'm not connecting, like something's missing here in terms of what I'm trying to say or ask a question, but just to even see and have the opportunity to see if that child will respond to a different person or a robot, in this case, the same question. To me, that's just knowledge. That's just understanding. And that's a place to then start from. So I'm going off on a little tangent, but that really spoke to me, that aspect of it. That's really great. We only have a couple minutes. Can you talk real quick about either something that you really feel an example that fulfills your mission for you? Your mission, I think, is to educate people. And it's longer than that, but I know it's a big part of it. So something that just reinforced for you that you're on the right track, and if there's anything new coming down the pike for you.
So it's always exciting to speak with the families and the teachers and the clinicians who are actually using the system. Of course, for me, I spend a lot of time in the back working on the technicalities and writing new material and so forth. So to actually be out in the field and to see the impact, it's really, really exciting. And it's great to see the kids with the robot, and it works very well and very consistently, which is really fun. But when you see the reaction of the caregivers who know the kiddos, and they see this new engagement and this access where sometimes they haven't had it before, that's really exciting, because then that we're making an impact, and that's what we want to do. We want to really help these kiddos and help remove barriers and get them skills that can help them to be successful in these different situations and get them access to the community and to the learning opportunities, and to help them to have a larger role, have a larger life.
Well, that's in keeping with our mission too. And our mission at Anderson is to optimize the quality of life for people with autism. So since that is different for every single person, in terms of what your dreams and passions are, I think it comes down to a lot of accessibility and a lot of resources and removing barriers, like you said. So thank you, Tim, and please pass along our thanks to the entire team. It's really exciting work that you're doing, and I appreciate it that you took the time out to share it with our audience and with me today on the podcast.
Well, that's great. Always glad to have the chance, and as well, thanks to the team. It's definitely a team effort, and we're moving it forward all the time.
Excellent. So check out Movia Robotics. That's Movia robotics.com for more information. There's all sorts of stuff on there and really interesting to check out. And Tim Gifford, thanks again for being on the show. This is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky. And remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 36, a weekly presentation of the Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show at this time next weekend.